Hi, this is Mike from Stagecoach Road Vintage Sewing Machine Restoration, and we're continuing on. I guess this is part 2 of the restoration of this little featherweight sewing machine. Today we're going to get into cleaning and lubricating the gears and movement points inside. Some parts it's better to take them off to clean and lubricate. Other parts there's really no point in it. So we'll start by taking off this top cover. An extra care should be taken not to damage your screw slots, although if you do have a screwdriver slip, you can usually clean it up a little bit with a file. And careful of your paint that you don't chip the paint. So this top cover comes off, and inside you'll see gears and cams and forks and other things that move around in here. You'll find artist brushes at your local thrift store for pretty cheap, and artists might not appreciate it, but they're great for cleaning sewing machine parts. I put 99% isopropyl alcohol in a spray bottle. I think that you can buy it this way now in a spray bottle. We've been doing this for years, and no doubt they figured it out from us. So spray some alcohol in there. And just use your brush to get in there and clean everything that you see. If there's a lot of gunk in the gear, in the teeth of the gears, you probably want to use a small screwdriver to scrape it out of the teeth of the gears. Replace it with nice, fresh, new grease. And this cam that moves in the fork back here, let's see if I can show you. Right here there is a cam and a fork. I believe that's what moves your feed dogs. And this I don't know what you call this thing, but it's like the bottom of a piston, where the piston rings go. This little clamp attaches to the bottom, to the top of the fork that's under it, and it rotates. The shaft rotates inside of that. So you want to get some alcohol in there to clean the old sticky oil out of there. You want to clean that cam. You want to get some alcohol down in here in this bearing where the shaft goes through to the hand wheel. And this is the gear that you want to get clean. So I'm going to fast forward through all of that because you don't want to watch me work a paintbrush. You want the alcohol to get down inside the movement points so it can flush out anything old and sticky. So you want to use a good bit of alcohol in there. This is not really necessary yet, but I don't want to forget it. And let's see. You can't see it from up here, but there's a block just below that the stitch length adjuster is attached to, and it moves this the fork inside on that cam up and down a little bit and adjusts the length of your stitch. Okay, I think that's cleaned out pretty well. You'll feel it as the old oil comes off. It gets freer, less sticky. I'm going to take off this knob and this cover plate here so we can get into that little fork that I was telling you about. Looks like this screwdriver will fit that. Now this little number plate comes off, and the adjuster knob is on a long screw that screws into this block back here. And it's got a little nut on the end to cinch it down once you get the screw in as far as you want it to go. We'll just leave that in there like that. And because of the paint, I'm not going to drop this piece in the alcohol. I'll just clean it separately. That's so pretty. But in here, now we have a block and with a bearing inside of it. Again, we're going to douse it with a little bit of alcohol and rotate it to work that. Get the oil out. You want to make sure that you flush it out until it's really clean. And I'm going to put that screw back in a little ways so I can work that block up and down. Because that also will have a little bit of sticky oil in it. Yeah, you can feel it as it gets clean in there. And after the alcohol gets blotted out and dries, then we'll want to remember to lube it up with some good quality sewing machine oil. You may have had sewing machines before that this knob is hard to move up and down, and that's just, it's that sticky oil. Easy to clean up. And after you work the alcohol through it, take a little piece of paper towel and get in and blot the dirty alcohol out. And as you wipe off the alcohol, cleans up the pieces too. It makes them shine. Wipe off any grease that you got on there. Now in here where we took out the needle bar and its linkages and the linkages for the presser bar, we want to get in there and clean that too. Same thing, spray some oil inside. Avoid getting the, spray alcohol inside. And avoid getting alcohol on your paint job, especially if it's an old black machine. Narrowly this shaft would come out and go in the alcohol bath, but as I said, I don't want to take the hook out. little paper towel wad. Wipe all this out in here and it'll look pretty and new again. I want to get some alcohol in behind this this little flywheel block because there's a bearing back there that the main shaft goes through. You want to get some alcohol in there and flush it out. There's an oil hole that you could drip alcohol in through, but if you got a machine with black paint, that could be just a little bit dangerous. Because once you get alcohol on here, if you try to wipe it off, it'll smear that soft shellac and make an ugly spot. So I go in this way. Yeah, that feels better. Right. I tip the machine on her back and take off the bottom nut and felt washer under it. Of course, you don't want to put your felt washer in the alcohol. Then the bottom cover just lifts right off. And there's usually a little bit of dust and dirt on there. I'll brush that off outside. And here you have all the workings of the bottom. See, this is this gear here is turning a gear right below it, which is on a vertical shaft and goes down to this gear here, which turns this gear, which turns your hook over here. That other fork I pointed out just moves up and down, and it moves your feed dogs. These connections here are little needle-shaped screws. It's a screw with a pointed end on it that screws through the housing of the machine, and that pointed end goes into a cone-shaped cup in the end of the shaft, and then your machine rotates on that little pivot point. There's one here, one here, one here, one here, and you can't see them, but there are two back here on the yoke that moves the feed dogs. Yeah, that looks like all of them on this machine. Then you have some shouldered screws that go through these the eyes on these links. So you need to get some alcohol in there and flush the old oil out. Right here is a movement point. Right here is a movement point. And back behind this gear is also a movement point. So you want to make sure you flush all of those out real well. alcohol's probably evaporated by now, but we'll give it a few more minutes. And while we're doing that, I'm going to clean the parts in the alcohol bath. So let's go outdoors, crew the alcohol bath, and scrub some parts. Back in the main shop up in Oregon, we have a real parts washer, but down here I just have got a gasket in it, so it seals really well and the alcohol doesn't evaporate. And I think this basket was for fruit or flowers or knickknacks or whatever, but it's just the right size to stop little parts from going through. And make sure that all your parts in here are washable parts. We don't want to put painted parts in there, although usually they'll survive okay. Put all your parts in the basket there and sloosh a little bit of alcohol on them and sit for a minute or two. Here, while we're at it, I'll show you around the camp a little bit. This here is Stagecoach Road Sewing South, out here in the Sonoran Desert. If you've watched our videos, you've seen TR, our video presenter. Their camp is over there, TR and Randy. While our parts are outside there drying, we're going to oil up. All right. While our parts outside are drying, we're going to oil up the other parts that we've already cleaned. You want to use a good quality sewing machine oil. You don't want to use 3-in-1 oil or WD-40 or anything like that. They're not what this machine wants. You want to put a drop in the bobbin winder and a small drop where the bobbin winder moves. Back here there's a hole above the rear bearing. And I usually go down inside and put a drop right where the shaft goes into the housing there. Put a substantial drop on this cam that rides in the fork. A substantial drop in this, whatever you call the dang thing. Work them in. And I'll come back and I'll put a little bit of Singer grease on this gear here and the one down below. There's a hole right here for the front bearing. And then I usually go around here and put one on the shaft where it goes into that bearing. Then tip her on her back, and all of those movement points that I pointed out before are going to need a little bit of oil. So each of those needle adjusters. These needle screws, by the way, are where you take up the slop if it's got a little bit of wear. and things are rattly and loose in there, you can back off the okay, these don't have lock nuts, these have set screws. Back off the set screws a little bit, and you can screw in that needle screw a tiny bit. Screw it in until your part feels just a little bit too tight, and then back it off a hair so it can move freely but doesn't slop around. Right to the other movement points is going to want a drop of oil. There's an oil hole right here for this bearing where this shaft goes through to the hook, bobbin race. Back here, let's see if I can make it visible for you. Really. Oh yeah, right here you can see this little fork that drives the feed dogs, and you want to make sure you get a drop of oil in both ends of that yoke. And get a drop of oil under that big gear that comes down from the top. Miss anything? Cycle your machine a few times and watch everything that moves and see if you missed anything. There's an oil hole here that I haven't seen on other featherweights. Maybe I've just missed it, but there's an oil hole here and an oil hole here on this shaft. Looks like I've got everything here. So we're just going to work that oil in. I know what I haven't gotten yet. This fork here that moves your stitch length adjuster. There's a cam inside there, or maybe it's just a bearing, I'm not sure, but you want to get some oil on that between the bearing and the fork. And then it pivots back here, so you want to make sure you get a drop of oil on that pivot point too. And at the other end of this bearing. By the time we work all of this oil in, our parts should be dry out there, and we can bring them in and polish them up a little bit and then put them back on. Seems like there's got to be another movement point here on the fork for the feed dogs. Yes, there is, way back in here. Kind of hard to see. Okay, let me know if I missed anything. What a sweet little machine. Okay, don't go away, I'll go get our parts. Oops, it went away. And pencil boxes. You need to know about pencil boxes. Pencil boxes are perfect for if you need to store your parts, if you need to put a project away for a few days. That way nothing gets lost. These and the little opaque pencil boxes, get them for $1 at Goodwill, they're just ideal. They're stackable and convenient. Okay, for parts that are pretty cruddy, I would get my Dremel out with a brass brush to clean them up. But these parts are just so new and fresh looking that I'm just going to use a little bit of fine steel wool to polish them up and get the last of the oil residue off. Especially any parts that are going to move or slide or rotate against another part. I want to make sure that just absolutely get all of the old oil film off. And of course they just look nicer when that film is off, cleaner. Okay, our parts are cleaned and polished, and we're ready to move on to the next step, which is putting the machine back together. And we're going to call that the end of this video, and I guess that makes this video number 2. So I guess video 3 will be reassembly. Thanks for watching.